The night was calm and the small town slept under a sky full of stars. Far away from the noise of cities, the world seemed peaceful, but somewhere above the quiet earth something was moving, something not human. In the silence of her small control room, Commander Ilara sat alone, her eyes fixed on the blinking lights of the communication screen. She had worked on many missions in her life, but this night was different. For the last 3 days, she had been receiving a signal from deep space. At first, everyone believed it was just another piece of space noise, maybe the echo of a distant star, or the radio pulse of a forgotten satellite. But Ilara was not so sure. She listened carefully, night after night, and she noticed a strange pattern. The signal carried rhythm, almost like words. And then, one night, a word formed clearly in the static. Galactic Zen. She froze, staring at the screen as the sound repeated again and again, a whisper from the unknown. Ilara tried to share her findings with her team, but most of them dismissed it. They said the mind plays tricks when you stare too long at empty signals. But Ilara trusted her instincts. She began recording every second, every tiny beat of the strange transmission. As she studied, she discovered that the signal was not just noise. It carried a hidden code, something alive, as if another intelligence was trying to speak. The code pulsed in strange ways, and when placed into her system, it drew out shapes and lines. The shapes looked almost like maps, guiding toward a place that did not exist on any star chart. She wondered, who could have sent it? And more important, why did it call her name? Because in one recording, in the middle of the static, she heard something that made her blood run cold. A human voice speaking softly, saying her name. Ilara. Her heart pounded. She played the sound again, trying to convince herself it was a mistake, but the voice was clear. Someone or something out there knew her. That night she could not sleep. She kept listening to the signal, and with each passing hour it grew stranger. Sometimes the words were clear, sometimes broken, but always repeating the same phrase, Galactic Zen. It felt less like a message and more like a guide, as if it wanted her to follow. Ilara thought of telling her superiors again, but she feared being laughed at. So she kept the secret to herself, working quietly, tracing the mysterious coordinates hidden in the message. The more she worked, the more she realized that the path led not to any known planet, but to a point far beyond the mapped galaxies. The following evening, something happened that made her decision for her. As she sat in the dim room, the screen flickered with a burst of light. For the first time, the static shifted into clear audio. A voice echoed, not robotic, not alien, but human-like, speaking in a tone of urgency. The guide is for you. Humanity must be ready. Then silence. The transmission ended, leaving only the steady hum of the machine. Ilara stared, her hands trembling. The words replayed in her mind. Humanity must be ready. Ready for what? She suddenly felt that the quiet night outside was not quiet at all, but heavy, like the world was holding its breath. She walked outside the station, the cold air hitting her face, and looked up at the sky. The stars shone like they always did, distant and silent, but now she knew they were not just lights in the darkness. Someone was out there watching, speaking, waiting. She whispered the strange word under her breath, Galactic Zen, and it felt heavy on her tongue like it carried meaning beyond human language. The silence of the night seemed to answer her. Back inside, Ilara replayed the files again and again. She began to notice something new in the signal. When the sound was slowed down, it revealed a hidden layer of voices, almost like a chorus, hundreds of voices speaking together, rising and falling like waves. They spoke in different tones, but one message came through. Survive, endure, remember. She felt a chill down her spine. Why would strangers from the stars tell humans to survive? What danger was coming? Her thoughts were interrupted when the system alarm blared. The signal grew stronger, louder, filling the room with a strange vibration. Lights flickered and the power almost failed. On the screen, a new pattern appeared, a spiral of stars glowing brighter than anything she had seen before. It was a map, leading somewhere, a path waiting for her to follow. The spiral spun slowly like an eye-opening, and then the system shut down completely. Darkness filled the control room. Ilara sat in silence, her breath sharp in the empty air. When the lights came back, the screen was black, the signal gone. She rushed to restart the system, but the frequency had vanished as if it never existed. No static, no voices, nothing. Just the quiet hum of normal space. Hilara leaned back exhausted, her mind racing. Had she imagined it all? But she knew the truth. She had heard her name. She had seen the map and she had felt the weight of those voices. Something wanted her to find it, something far beyond Earth, and if she did not, she feared humanity would never know the truth until it was too late. That night, Hilara sat alone in her cabin, staring at the stars through the small window. She thought of the word again, Galactic Zen. Was it a warning, a test, or perhaps a key to something greater? She did not have the answers, but she knew one thing: her life had changed forever. The silence of space was no longer empty. Somewhere out there a mystery waited, and it had chosen her. The wind outside howled softly, but inside her heart the sound of the signal echoed again and again. Galactic Zen. Humanity must be ready. And as Hilara closed her eyes, she knew the arrival had already begun. The next morning, Hilara woke with the weight of the night still heavy on her mind. The silence of the room felt strange after hearing so many voices in her head the night before. She quickly checked her communication system again, hoping the signal had returned, but the screen showed nothing except the usual static from deep space. The mysterious map, the voices, the sudden flash of human-like words, all of it had disappeared as if it had never existed. Still, she knew it was real. Her hands shook as she replayed her recordings. Hours passed as she tried to pull apart the strange noise she had saved. She zoomed in, slowed the waveforms, turned them backward, and then sped them up again. That was when she noticed something unusual. Hidden deep in the static, there were repeating pulses, short, long, short, long. At first they seemed random, but then it struck her. It was a code. Her heart raced as she stared at the screen. The rhythm reminded her of the Morse system humans had once used. She quickly pulled up a chart, and as she translated each pulse, letters began to appear on her screen. The letters did not form random words. They spelled a message. At first the words were broken, but soon the meaning became clear. Follow the pattern. Humanity will be tested. Galactic Zen is the guide. Hilara felt her skin prickle. Whoever had sent this was not only aware of human history, but had chosen a form of code that only humans would understand. This was no coincidence. The message was meant for her kind and perhaps for her alone, but there was more. When she pushed further into the code, another layer revealed itself. The pattern of signals began drawing symbols across her screen. Lines connected, circles formed, and soon an image appeared. It looked like a spiral of stars, but with markings at certain points. These points were not random. They matched coordinates of known galaxies and star clusters, yet they connected in a strange path that no map had ever shown before. It was like a road hidden in the sky, a road that someone wanted humans to follow. Hilara printed the image and pinned it to her wall. She stood back staring at the spiral, wondering what it meant. Why would aliens send directions? Were they trying to help? Or were they leading humanity into a trap? She could not answer these questions, but she knew one thing: the message was too clear to ignore. She felt torn inside. Should she share this with the world? Should she report it to the Space Council? If she did, they might dismiss her again, or worse, they might take it from her and bury the truth. For now she decided to keep decoding in secret. As hours turned into night, Hilara grew more obsessed with the message. Every time she thought she had reached the end, the signal revealed something new. At one point, she discovered a hidden sequence of numbers that repeated over and over. After studying them, she realized they were not random either. They were dates. Some were in the distant past. Some matched famous human events, wars, disasters, even discoveries. The signal had predicted them all. And then she noticed a final date, one that had not yet arrived. It was only a few months away. The date carried no explanation, no description, only a warning tone in the code, as if the event would change everything. Her breath quickened as she read it again. What could happen in just a few months that would matter to the entire galaxy? She felt fear growing inside her, but also a strange sense of responsibility. If the signal had chosen her to see it, maybe it was her duty to follow it. Maybe the safety of humanity depended on her understanding the hidden code before it was too late. That night, she dreamed of voices calling her name, pulling her into a vast tunnel of stars. She saw Earth from far above, small and fragile, as alien eyes watched it silently. She woke in a sweat, whispering the strange word again. Galactic Zen. The sound of it no longer frightened her. It felt like a key, something meant to unlock a hidden door. Days turned into weeks as Ilara and her small team studied the hidden code. The spiral map stared back at them every night, glowing like a secret only they were brave enough to follow. Ilara barely slept anymore. The voice in the recording echoed in her head, telling her again and again that the guide was hers to carry. At first, Malik and Asha worked beside her in silence, too afraid to admit what they all knew, that the signal was pushing them toward a choice no human had ever faced. And then one night, something new appeared. As Ilara monitored the frequencies, her system picked up a sudden burst of light. It was not the usual static. It was a pulse sharp and clear like a heartbeat. The pulse repeated 3 times, paused, then repeated again. Malik leaned forward, his face pale. "It's a summons," he whispered. Asha frowned, typing furiously at the console. Her eyes widened. "It's not just a summons. It's coordinates. The same spiral, but this time one star is marked brighter. It's giving us a location." The room went silent. They all stared at the single glowing point on the map. It was far beyond human reach, beyond any mission humans had ever attempted. But the signal was precise. Whoever had sent it wanted them to come. Ilara's chest tightened as she realized what this meant. The message was no longer just a code to be solved. It was an invitation, or maybe a demand. She whispered under her breath, "First contact," and the words filled the room with both wonder and fear. The next days were a blur of decisions. Ilara knew they could not reveal everything to the Council yet. If they did, the government would seize the discovery, lock it away, and bury it in endless debates. Humanity would lose its chance. So she made a dangerous choice. With Malik and Asha's help, she secretly prepared a small ship for travel. It was not designed for journeys that far, but with modifications it might reach the marked point. The risks were impossible to count, but something inside her told her she had no choice. The date hidden in the code was coming closer, and if she waited, the chance might be lost forever. The night they launched, the stars shone brighter than usual. The small vessel, silent and hidden from official records, rose into the dark sky. Ilara sat in the pilot's seat, her hands steady on the controls. Malik checked the systems, his face pale but determined, while Asha entered the coordinates into the computer. None of them spoke as Earth fell behind them, shrinking into a blue dot against the black. Their ship trembled as it broke into faster-than-light travel, following the path that the signal had burned into their minds. Ilara closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the hum of the engines, and whispered the strange word once more, Galactic Zen. The journey felt endless, yet the map guided them like a compass. Hours stretched into days, and still the spiral remained clear. But the deeper they went, the stranger the space became. Stars grew dimmer, the silence heavier, and shadows seemed to drift at the edge of their vision. Sometimes the ship's lights flickered, and Ilara thought she saw faces in the glass, reflections that were not their own. Malik grew restless, whispering that they were being watched. Asha tried to stay calm, but her hands shook as she monitored the strange signals that surrounded them. The static was no longer random. It had turned into whispers, soft and urgent, in voices that sounded almost human. Ilara never told the others, but sometimes in the middle of the night she thought she heard her mother's voice, long gone, calling her name from the static. Finally, after what felt like weeks, the ship slowed. The spiral map blinked on the screen, and the glowing star grew brighter, pulling them toward it. As the ship emerged from faster-than-light travel, the crew gasped. Before them floated a massive station, unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. It was not like a ship, not like any structure Ilara had ever studied. It was alive. The surface pulsed with light, veins of glowing energy running across it like rivers. Towers rose and bent like the branches of a tree, stretching out into the void. The entire station rotated slowly around a dead star, its light long gone but its gravity holding the giant structure in place. For a long moment, none of them spoke. They only stared, hearts pounding. Finally, Malik broke the silence, his voice barely a whisper. "We are not alone." Ilara's chest tightened as she guided the ship closer. The structure responded instantly. A beam of light shot out from its surface, wrapping around their vessel, pulling them gently into its orbit. The ship trembled but did not resist. It was as if the station had been waiting for them all along. As they were pulled inside, the view changed. They entered a vast chamber, glowing with blue and silver light. Strange shapes moved in the distance, tall and slender, their forms shifting like smoke and shadow. The air inside shimmered as if it carried energy itself. The voices in the static grew louder, no longer broken, no longer unclear. They were speaking in a language none of them had learned, yet somehow deep inside Ilara understood. The words were not spoken to frighten. They were spoken as a welcome. The ship settled gently onto a platform, and the beam of light released them. For a moment silence filled the chamber. Then one of the figures stepped forward. Its body glowed faintly, tall and graceful, its face hidden in a veil of light. When it spoke, the sound filled not just the room, but their very minds. "Commander Ilara," it said, "you have come. The guide has reached its bearer." Ilara froze, her blood cold. They knew her name. They had always known. Malik and Asha stood behind her, unable to breathe. The figure raised a hand and the chamber pulsed with light. More beings appeared, their voices blending into a single tone like a chorus. They spoke again, this time slower, each word clear. "Humanity has been called. Humanity will be tested. You are the first to answer." Ilara's voice trembled as she finally found the strength to reply. "Why us? Why me?" The figure leaned closer, its light almost blinding. Its voice was calm, steady, and yet filled with weight. "Because your kind carries the fire that survives. You are stronger than you believe. But strength alone is not enough. You must prove what makes you worthy." The chamber shook slightly, as if the dead star itself had stirred at the words. Ilara looked at her team, then back at the beings. She did not know if she should feel honored or terrified. But one thing was clear. This was not the end of their journey. It was the beginning. The first contact had been made, and with it a test that would decide the fate of not only their lives but all of humanity. The vast chamber of light grew still after the alien voice faded. Ilara stood frozen, her heart beating like a drum in her chest. The words echoed inside her mind again and again. Humanity will be tested. She glanced at Malik and Asha. Malik's face was pale, his lips pressed tightly together, as though he dared not breathe. Asha's eyes darted around the chamber, wide with both awe and fear. The glowing figures that surrounded them remained silent, their forms shifting faintly like shadows of fire, watching the humans with patient eyes. Then slowly the first being raised its hand. The walls of the chamber rippled like water, and suddenly the floor beneath their feet disappeared. In an instant, Ilara and her companions found themselves standing in a different place. It looked like Earth, but not quite. The sky was the same blue. The air carried the same taste. But the land stretched in unfamiliar ways, as if Earth had been copied by memory and remade imperfectly. The three of them stood on a field of stone, and in the distance flames licked the horizon. Malik gasped and pointed. Human shapes were moving among the fire. Ilara's stomach clenched as she realized the figures looked like people, real people. Some were crying, some were fighting, some were helping each other, but all of them were trapped in chaos. The alien voice filled the air once more, though no figure was present this time. It was everywhere, in the sky, in the ground, in their very bones. This is the first test. Humanity must show what it values most, survival or sacrifice. Watch and act. Ilara's throat tightened as she looked around. The scene grew worse by the second. The human-like figures were screaming, running from collapsing towers of stone. Fire spread fast and the ground itself trembled. A child fell to the ground crying, while others ran past without stopping. Ilara felt her body move before her mind decided. She rushed forward and lifted the child into her arms. The girl's face looked human, though her eyes glowed faintly like the stars. She clung to Ilara, whispering words in a broken voice that Ilara did not understand, but felt deep in her heart. Behind her, Malik shouted, "Ilara! This isn't real, don't get trapped in their game." But as he spoke, another figure appeared, a man who looked exactly like Malik himself. This other Malik had cold eyes, hard and empty, and without hesitation he pushed past the frightened people, knocking them aside in his rush to escape the fire. The real Malik froze, staring at his mirror image, his voice trembling. "That's me." Asha pulled him back, fear flooding her face. "No, it's not you. It's what they want to see. It's the test." Ilara carried the child to safety near a fallen wall, her arms burning, her lungs aching from the smoke. She turned to the others. "We can't ignore them. This test is about choice. If we only think of ourselves, we fail." Malik's voice shook. But if we waste time helping illusions, we might never get out. His words were desperate, but Alara could see the conflict in his eyes. The vast chamber of light grew still after the alien voice faded. Alara stood frozen, her heart beating like a drum in her chest. The words echoed inside her mind again and again. Humanity will be tested. She glanced at Malik and Asha. Malik's face was pale, his lips pressed tightly together, as though he dared not breathe. Asha's eyes darted around the chamber, wide with both awe and fear. The glowing figures that surrounded them remained silent, their forms shifting faintly like shadows of fire, watching the humans with patient eyes. Then slowly the first being raised its hand. The walls of the chamber rippled like water, and suddenly the floor beneath their feet disappeared. In an instant, Alara and her companions found themselves standing in a different place. It looked like Earth, but not quite. The sky was the same blue, the air carried the same taste, but the land stretched in unfamiliar ways as if Earth had been copied by memory and remade imperfectly. The three of them stood on a field of stone, and in the distance flames licked the horizon. Malik gasped and pointed. Human shapes were moving among the fire. Ilara's stomach clenched as she realized the figures looked like people, real people. Some were crying, some were fighting, some were helping each other, but all of them were trapped in chaos. The alien voice filled the air once more, though no figure was present this time. It was everywhere, in the sky and the ground, in their very bones. This is the first test. Humanity must show what it values most, survival or sacrifice. Watch and act. Ilara's throat tightened as she looked around. The scene grew worse by the second. The human-like figures were screaming, running from collapsing towers of stone. Fires spread fast and the ground itself trembled. A child fell to the ground crying, while others ran past without stopping. Ilara felt her body move before her mind decided. She rushed forward and lifted the child into her arms. The girl's face looked human, though her eyes glowed faintly like the stars. She clung to Ilara, whispering words in a broken voice that Ilara did not understand but felt deep in her heart. Behind her, Malik shouted, "Ilara! This isn't real, don't get trapped in their game." But as he spoke, another figure appeared, a man who looked exactly like Malik himself. This other Malik had cold eyes, hard and empty, and without hesitation he pushed past the frightened people, knocking them aside in his rush to escape the fire. The real Malik froze, staring at his mirror image, his voice trembling. "That's me." Asha pulled him back, fear flooding her face. "No, it's not you. It's what they want to see. It's the test." Ilara carried the child to safety near a fallen wall, her arms burning, her lungs aching from the smoke. She turned to the others. "We can't ignore them. This test is about choice. If we only think of ourselves, we fail." Malik's voice shook. "But if we waste time helping illusions, we might never get out." His words were desperate, but Ilara could see the conflict in his eyes. She knew he was afraid, but she also knew the test was meant to reveal what humans valued most. As if to confirm her thought, the alien voice thundered again across the burning land. "What defines your kind? Is it the fight to live above all else, or the choice to save others at the cost of your own safety?" The ground split with a violent crack, and the scene turned darker. More human-like figures fell into the fissures, crying out for help. Ilara placed the child in Asha's arms and leapt toward the edge. She reached out, grabbing the hands of two figures before they could fall into the abyss. Her muscles screamed as she pulled them up, one by one, refusing to let go. Sweat poured down her face, but she held on until the strangers were safe. When she turned, she saw Malik standing still, his fists clenched, torn between fear and courage. His false double, the cold, selfish version of him, stood smirking, walking away without a glance. For a moment, Ilara thought Malik would follow that shadow, but then he shouted and ran toward a fallen beam, straining with all his strength to lift it and free the trapped figures beneath. The false Malik screamed, his body twisting before fading into smoke, as if erased by Malik's choice. Ilara's chest swelled with relief. The test was forcing them to face not only strangers but themselves. The fires grew wilder, and the sky darkened. Asha stumbled toward Ilara, still holding the child. Her face was pale, her voice trembling. "If we keep this up, we won't survive. They're testing us to death." Ilara wiped the sweat from her forehead, her voice firm but gentle. "Maybe survival isn't the point. Maybe the point is to see if we put others before ourselves. She looked down at the glowing child clinging to Asha and whispered, "If this is the test, then I already know the answer." The voice returned, deeper, louder than before, shaking the ground beneath them. "Your actions are seen. Your choices are marked. The trial continues." A sudden beam of light surrounded Ilara, Malik, and Asha. The burning land shattered like glass, dissolving into fragments of light that swirled around them. They were pulled upward, weightless, until they found themselves back in the alien chamber. The glowing figures stood in silence, their light pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. The first being stepped forward again, its voice echoing like thunder and calm water all at once. "You chose sacrifice when you could have chosen survival. You chose others when you could have chosen yourselves. This is the essence of humanity." The figure paused, its light flickering faintly, as though measuring their worth. "But this is only the beginning. The trials will grow harder. Many will not survive them. Be ready." Ilara's legs felt weak, but she forced herself to stand tall. She looked at Malik and Asha. They were pale, shaken, but their eyes carried a spark of something new, courage. She turned back to the beings and spoke with steady voice. "If this is what it takes to prove humanity, then we will face it. Whatever it is." The chamber pulsed with light, brighter than before, and for a brief moment, Ilara thought she saw something in the glow. Faces. Human faces, watching from within the light, as if countless lives were tied to the outcome of their trials. Her heart pounded with fear and determination. She did not know what lay ahead, but one thing was clear. This was no longer just her journey. This was the test of all humanity, and failure was not an option. The silence inside the alien chamber was heavy, as if the walls themselves were waiting for an answer. Commander Ilara stood alone, her heart beating fast. She had faced the trials of strength, courage, and truth. She had endured betrayal and fear. But now the alien council spoke of one last test, a test that would decide the fate of her people. The leader of the council, a tall figure with glowing blue eyes, stepped forward. His voice echoed like wind in an empty cave. "This final trial is not about fighting. It is about what makes humanity worthy. You must prove that your kind can value others more than yourselves. Without that, Earth will never join us." Ilara felt her throat tighten. She had prepared for battles, for puzzles, even for betrayal. But this was different. This was a test of the human heart. The floor beneath her shifted, and the chamber dissolved into light. Suddenly she was standing inside a vast ship that seemed broken and burning. Fire spread through metallic halls and alarms screamed. In the distance she heard cries. Not human cries, but voices, small and trembling. She followed the sound, running past broken walls and smoke until she saw them. A group of alien children, their skin glowing faintly in the darkness, were trapped behind fallen metal beams. Their large eyes were wide with fear as the flames closed in around them. Ilara's instincts told her what she had to do. She rushed forward, ignoring the heat and smoke. She pulled at the heavy beams, but they would not move. The ship trembled, as if ready to collapse at any moment. Her lungs burned with each breath, but she did not stop. The children reached out their hands, crying out in a language she barely understood, but the meaning was clear. "Save us." Her mind screamed at her to think fast. She saw a small opening above the rubble, a gap just wide enough for the children to crawl through. She shouted, "Climb up, hurry!" She pushed and lifted the debris just enough so they could squeeze through. One by one, the children scrambled to safety, coughing and crying. But the last child was too small, too weak to climb. The fire grew closer, heat pressing against Ilara's skin. She had one choice left. She knelt down, pushing the child up with all her strength, lifting the little one until small hands caught the ledge above. She smiled in relief as the child was pulled to safety. But in that moment, the ground beneath her cracked. A steel beam fell, striking her shoulder and pinning her down. Pain shot through her body, but she gritted her teeth. She could hear the children crying for her from above, but she only shouted back, "Go! Don't wait! Keep running!" Smoke filled her lungs. Her vision blurred. Still, she refused to move until she was sure the last of them had escaped. The ship roared as if it would fall apart completely. Ilara braced herself for the end. But suddenly the flames vanished, the smoke cleared, and the ship dissolved into light once more. She was back inside the alien chamber, lying on the floor. Her body no longer burned with pain, though her heart still raced as if the fire was real. The alien council stood around her, silent and watchful. Their eyes glowed brighter than before. The leader stepped forward and spoke, his voice softer now. You chose sacrifice. You gave your safety for others, even for those not of your kind. That is what we needed to see.